morning, brother. Thanks to have you with me on this show all the way from United Kingdom. It's really good to see you. Can the audience know a little bit about you so that
Oh,
I've read
that's
you
one
and
part.
I've read your background. It's quite impressive. We may have to speak for one full day to share all your credentials. Just for the audience to connect with you.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the honor and the privilege to be able to get to know you, to get to know the wonderful things you're doing, and the great contribution you're putting to society.
Thank you.
To talk about me, well, you're welcome. I'm just Abdul Dewale Mohammed, and I'm lucky to have been able to use whatever resources I have to look at the needs of the larger community. It's been on for years. Had the child at the what they call orphanage in Africa. I work closely with people who are crippled, the disabled, the blind, the deaf, and I ensure that they are being given the dignity of life. I set up the first children organization in Africa, Nigeria particularly, and across some countries in Africa. And also in the UK, I set up the first African children organization in the UK. And I realized that all over the world, with all my travel to America and the rest of it, we don't care about children. And I've been victims in many times to the world we are today. And eventually, I realized that if you're going to make sustainable, substantial change in society, you have to think about policy. For instance, people term Africa poor. Africa is not poor. Africa is the richest continent. And looking like former Prime Minister of Guinea said in our program, I think was it on Sunday with the Vice President of South Sudan, that Africa is a country, and I seem to buy into that. Africa is sorry, but the problems are policy. Even within the UN, there are problems. And the UN answers have been come up because these are focus that I have as a task on meaningful changes to our society. In 2018, was it 2013, the UN invited three people to lead a high-level panel. One is the president of Indonesia, the second was the president of Liberia, and my prime minister here then, David Cameron, to come up with the word and tell the world what to do. And by 2015, when the Millennium Development Goals come to an end, they sat down in Bali, Indonesia, and they said two things. And I tell you, those two things were the main thing to create a new horizon, to create a new foundation for change in our world. And what they said, renewed global partnership, people-centered policy. And I buy into that. My organization buys into that. And we believe greatly, 100% into that. But unfortunately, by 2015, the United Nations came up with 17 goals and put partnership as on that. This is quite confusing. And we have only 15 years to be able to deliver. So, and I have written to the UN Secretary General. I'm waiting for a response for him to call us for a meeting. Because when in 2018, the World Economic Forum said in their program, because the World Economic Forum is the largest and most research conference in the world in Switzerland. And the theme of that conference 2018 January was the fractured world. And I think if anybody hears that, we need to do something. But I can tell you, Sri Prakash, is that unfortunately, although initially for that conference, 40th anniversary conference of World Economic Forum, it was co-chaired by women. And I believe greatly in that because women have great potentials. But unfortunately, what the World Economic did was to use women as numbers. So, as a Secretary of the United Nations Global Compact, I then called my colleagues, what do we do? So, first of all, we analyzed this issue of our fractured world. And we're able to find an answer. Just three things that can help change the world. And so what we did was to call for a meeting in New York with the UN Women. So 19th of July in 2018, in New York with the UN Women, we sat down and I gave them this blueprint. But unfortunately, I didn't see the what will I call it, the foundation, the structure of the UN as it is today. You know, it's 75 years. I come even to the angle where we talk about trust. Because without trust, you can't build very brass tacks. And so in 2019, the president of the world of the United Nations General Assembly, who has to be our friend in Nigeria, who is then the UN representative in the United Nations, his remit was for that 1 year, because every person that becomes the president of the General Assembly of the UN, you have only 1 year of service. And he says he was going to deal with trust. Can you imagine? 75 years of UN, we're just talking about building trust. It's quite unfortunate. However, we need to build trust. And that's what my organization, which I founded in 2010, that was 10 October 2010, was to look at the issue of this issue of trust and partnership. And I take it back to 1955, when the Africa Arab Asia came together in Bandung, Indonesia, about this Bandung Asia Africa Conference. And unfortunately, the government, the media, and universities, they failed to involve, to promote the 10 principles of Bandung for people like me, because this year's 6th anniversary, and yet Africa Arab Asia had not been closer together. But my organization has been able to tie that area. And right from the universities, because we have the mandate from the Arab, Africa, and Asia Asian universities, which I even currently serve on their board, to bring all university presidents together. Because if you want to change the system, like you talk about the spiritual CEO, you'd be looking at first to look at chambers of commerce, because that's the structure. If you just look at individual like this, when you look at the chambers of commerce, then you can make more larger impact in ensuring that you can change that structure. So what we did was to create a structure. So we create a structure now for university president, which the South Sudan president and the vice president are going to ensure that we are able to lay, at least to institutionalize this Africa Arab Asia that January next year to mark the National Year of Education. We've got this mandate over the last 5 years, but look at the period it took us to ensure we have the right, because most of us are too much in a hurry, in a haste. Rather than planning, because we all have great ideas, but we lack a strategy to achieve. And so basically, if you're doing something in society, you need to then be able to buy, to ensure that you bring people along with your idea. And if your idea is genuine, it will actually surface and see the light of day.
Yes.
And so basically, myself is just to see, well, basically, let me just try and quickly, because you asked a simple question, which I was able to say, this is quite big for me to answer. But the prayer is that everybody is got a purpose in life. We all have something to do in this world. And if you don't know, and most of us don't know who we are. And if you don't know who you are, how can you know about other people? How can you know about your environment? So the point that we, and my person is, I know that quite a lot of good people out there.
Yes.
And evidences are there that they've been frustrated on the system, whether within the UN, within the government, and even the society organization.
Okay.
And all our job as an organization is to bring people together, resource these people, and ensure we can start delivering for our present generations and future generations. Because that is why we exist. Life is give and take. How do you give to somebody? How do you pray to your God to give you when you do not ask yourself, who have you given? You have no right to ask God to give you.
Correct.
He has given you good health and everything to give people. Our angels will not come down. It is we that are here that will be the angels to uplift the lives of others.
Right.
So if we don't know purpose, what is the education? So we have not been given the right education from childhood. And that is a problem of society today. Most of our laws marginalize a larger number of society. So what are we talking about? Teachers are not respected in society. What are we talking about? And the African adage says it takes a village to raise a child. If we don't follow that adage, what future are we building? Because the child is the future of man. If you don't take care of the child, you're indirectly not taking care of your own old age. So how stupid are we when we do not give everything to the child? Because we are denying ourselves our own old age. So that tells you, do we have wisdom?
Right.
These are the areas where I, as a person, I am praying when I leave this world, we will have laid the foundation because life, the world cannot change during my time. But what we can really do now is to lay the foundation so that others can start to build on that foundation because at the moment there is none. But we are using South Sudan now as a model because we believe in public-private partnership. The
Okay.
government and the UN agents believe in public-private partnership. But unfortunately, we are living in two worlds. We pay the tax to keep the machinery of government. But when we
Yes.
come to say we want to save society, we now divide ourselves and say, oh, don't work with government, the government doesn't want to work with you. So we're separate two worlds. So we can't deliver for society until we create one world. So we're going to use South Sudan as a model, the newest country in the world, the youngest country in the world, to make it a model. And as God would do it, when they were going to broker peace in that country, the Pope Francis, the eminent, the holiness, did something that is unexplainable in the world by kissing the foot of both the president and the rebels.
Okay.
And that is signifying that this is a country that will help to change not only developing countries, but as well as advanced countries. So we are going to make sure we mobilize all experts across the world to work with us. We have Sam on the which I would also love to have you around because whatever you do, if you don't look at your spirituality, end of the day, it's just foolery. We're all here to give a service to society. Because why? You came with nothing, you go with nothing.
Right.
So why are you not trying to help to ensure people can live in your art?
Beautiful.
And that is the greatest goal you can have to say you've lived a worthy life. So my person is to give myself. I've been giving it for years and years and years. My families have suffered through it because rather than start looking for fortunes, I was trying to change minds and change society in a very difficult world that we are. But it is paying, and we will be that good practice to show others that first is to value yourself, to know that you are here to
Yes.
uplift others that are lesser than you, because you too are looking for somebody to lift you up. It's just a
Correct.
simple thing. The more you help others, the better for you to be a greater person in this world.
Very well said.
Thank
Beautiful,
you.
sir. I mean, the kind of vision that you have shared is really, really, I mean, something amazing. And
Thank you.
the way in which you are looking at the public-private partnership, and no one brings anything, no one takes anything. Yet we have a choice. Like we are all in a ladder. There are thousands of people above us. There are thousands of people below us. And it's our duty, moral responsibility to lift them, alleviate them from their pains and sorrows, and help them grow to a higher level. And this kind of change can only happen when people change from the level of the heart, as you beautifully said. Finally, if I am big hearted, I am warm hearted, I am kind hearted, I would see the suffering and pain of people who are much below in the social ladder of success and failure. And I would be able to inspire those above me and take their help in some way and create some kind of a way in which the people who are below me can climb up, so that there is some kind of a social equilibrium which settles in. I wouldn't call it social justice, but at least a social equilibrium. Food for people who don't have, water for people who don't have, basic amenities, medicines, access to education, things like that, which is a very large cause. And as you beautifully said, you would like to see at least the founding pillars laid before you leave this world is a very noble thought indeed. And maybe this is where the book, like The Spiritual CEO I have written, connects, because here I'm talking about a little bit of a person being a little bit of altruistic, looking at a larger cause, though in a normal commercial world, people will laugh at you. When you speak anything other than profits, you are not taken seriously. They say that you are just giving a lecture, but let's focus on business and making profit. At least in the last 10, 15 years, there has been a big paradigm shift slowly which has happened, where people have started seeing a bigger picture of keeping everyone happy and peaceful. And for that, certain spiritual inclinations has to be there, irrespective of your faith, irrespective of your religion, irrespective of your caste, creed, whatever, education, wealth. We all need to be connected. We are all actually integrated, whether we know it or not. We all started, after all, with just a few human beings in this world, depending upon which faith you believe in. But when the transition happened from orangutan to chimpanzee to human beings, there were only about handful, 100, 200. And anthropologists say that everything originated from Africa, that beautiful world that you mentioned about. And from there, it spread all over the globe. And today we are running into billions. We all, if you go back to the basic chromosome or the DNA from where we all originated, I'm very sure that 10, 20, 30 generations prior to this, you and I, my forefather and your forefather, would have been in some way connected. And that kind of an awakening to happen, I just thought that the right person to tap into is the CEO of an organization, because they have access to people who they can influence. And with that noble thought only, I wrote this book where you not only transform beyond just looking, making profits, but make a global positive impact of uniting people. First, uniting the people within your organization for a bigger cause, so that when you leave this world, you leave some kind of a positive impression other than just impacting the profit and loss account and balance sheet. That was a fundamental thought that I had behind this book. Of course, I've woven a few stories which I am familiar with. Predominantly, since I am from India, I have woven stories based on Indian mythology, which at least I can connect because that's where I have grown up. Here and there, I have picked up a lot of input from other walks of life as well, from Western thinking, from how Japanese and Chinese, the Orientals think, things like that also I've integrated in the book. I hope someday, sooner or later, you'll have a copy with you for you to read and see how the world can actually benefit from such works. It's not that only my book is going to make all the changes. I'm very sure that it will add to the bigger blocks. One small brick, if I have made in that process, I am very sure my job is done.
Thank you very much. That's quite inspiring and insightful what you just said. What I would just only want to add is that about the CEO. When we talk about CEO, we talk about the corporate world, if I'm right?
Yeah.
So, which means it's straightforward to corporate world. Now, the corporate world, it is not the job of government to do business, but the corporate sector to do
Yeah.
business, and they keep the engine of the world, moving. But they need people
Yes.
to sell their business, and without the people, there's no business to sell.
Correct. Correct.
So that takes me to when I was invited in 2019 by the Institute of Directors of India to speak on corporate social responsibility in
Okay.
Mumbai.
Okay.
And what I said there, which in a nutshell was that when we talk about what do you call it, CSR, which is corporate social responsibility, and I said, if I am a chief executive and you are my director in charge of CSR, and you come to me and say, let us help that community. Uh, That's what proposal you are giving, and you're my corporation. I will tell you that I will use your salary to look after those.
Okay.
What you should be doing is to give me ideas on how we can better a community. Level of where we can say, okay, these people don't have facilities for virtual internet. How can we try to provide internet but lower price? There
Okay.
you are talking. You are being creative. I said, so because there's nothing called charity. Let us be very honest with ourselves. If you don't run charity like a business, it will fold up. So you have to business like in whatever you do, in whatever you provide. So the if you look at COVID now,
Yeah.
even COVID has shown us because you realize that we talk about globalization. Globalization in real sense is just the fact that it's not working, but it's only on the internet. And why I say this is that if you look at where the issue of COVID came up, unfortunately, with the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. He was one of the major problems because at that time, he was given a bad name to WHO. And WHO was supposed to, World Health Organization is supposed to be the central body across the world to ensure that we have good health.
Yes.
And at that period, there became a problem regarding the credibility of WHO. So what we would have done with this COVID was to be able to bring the best scientists together under
Yes.
WHO, and
Yes.
believe me, will have saved hundreds and thousands of lives. And secondly, every country is now competing to make vaccine as against a neutral national, international body.
Yes.
And now today again, vaccine has become a business. So it's quite unfortunate.
Yes.
So this is the big problem where I commend you from my heart for the toss of this spiritual CEO, because that is area we should be thinking about on how do we ensure we reorientate the minds of our corporate chiefs. Now we have the UN Global Compact, which I'm a
Yes.
signatory.
Yes.
Under the UN Global Compact, when late the Secretary General of the United Nations Kofi Annan came
Yeah.
up with the UN Global Compact, it was basically looking at the CEO,
Okay.
the corporate body. But I can tell you, the scorecard is not quite impressive about what the CEOs have done under the UN Global Compact.
Okay.
So that's why I said I commend your initiative, your
Thank you.
creativity
Thank you.
in terms of coming with this, because this is where we should now be driving at. To show this is the people who the whole world are aware, because they play very important role. Like I said, the government is not the business, it is the businessmen to do business.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
therefore, when we look at it, and if we do not get their mindset right, then we cannot create a better world. And so your and so we will very much appreciate to see how much we can work with you as an organization. We want to take it not just CEO. We want to look at it from the university, from the
Yes.
educational level, our teacher.
Yes. Yes.
Because people forget one thing, that a
Correct.
teacher is the most privileged person in the world.
Okay.
Because when you have the opportunity to teach, let's say 100 of students, will you imagine if it's just 5%
Correct.
that just love you for how much love, how much you've impacted into their lives, and they
Yes.
hold you in a high esteem. I've had experience of some teachers mentioning how they went into a place, and end of the day, a student comes up and said, do you remember me? And that alone, the fact, and then that fact, and then you see tears of joy in their
Yes, sir.
faces,
Of course.
remembering how they will help this young person who is
Correct.
now a chief executive of a multinational company. So a teacher is honored person. And until we start letting know that teaching is a sacred job,
Yes.
just like somebody who is a pope or whatever, because you are
Correct.
there to change the lives of people. And so we need to go back to the norms. So if we were able to, with your support, we can start
Yes.
looking at how to build spirituality from across the board. You know, in particular, even our women, because when I was with the World UN Women in New York, I tell you, well, something I speak out of my heart. I give example. I was in Siena for the International Universities Conference in 2016 or 2016, and I look
Yeah.
at all the university presidents. That is the largest body of vice or president of universities across the world. And I said to her, I said, you're all academic tourists.
Okay.
And I meant it, because what everybody do is to make sure that that international conference, and when they get there, all the resolutions of that conference is not taken back to the university to implement. All their mind is now, when they get to the hotels, take off their clothes, and it's all about shopping.
Correct.
So every year, every university is doing conference. It's like, come to my conference, I come to yours. Become like a business. Rather than to look at the problems and come up with a theme. They look at a team that international bodies can sponsor, a team that you'll be interested to come to my university for that conference, rather than to look and say, look, what are the fundamental problems on the ground that we can look at, address, and try to find a solution. By next year, what they could have done was to collect information, see the good practices from that particular thing, and then see how they start dealing with it. They don't. They pick up another topic. They pick up another topic without dealing with the topic. So this has been all over the world, all over the world.
Yes.
And the UN said, we do not have sustainable structure.
Okay.
And why don't we have sustainable structures? It is because most of our policies are not people-centered. Why are not people-centered? Let's look at the issue of when they say smart city. Smart city for who? The villages have been abandoned. A lot of people want to come into the city. You create overpopulation in the city. Then you see the drive from Maryland in the United States. You can see the drive from Maryland into Washington, D.C. People can't afford to live in Washington, D.C. They have to stay. So it's like a slavery. People are moving and they have to go back en masse. Okay. So these are the minds all over the world. And so if we don't look at the fundamental problems, we can for years we have not solved. I remember in 1945 when the United Nations was established. You remember what they call it, the book Animal Farm. George Orwell. That is the world we are still living for the past 76 years. Do what I say, don't do what I do. So when are we going to change the mindset of those we put in government? Because you're lucky to be there. All you need is to see that God gave you that position. How can you give back? You can't be there for life. You're there for a short time. And I've said something, sir. I've said something. We have grown from level of blaming anybody in government.
Yes.
Because we fail to realize one fact. People in government are members of the civil society.
Yes.
So if civil society does not change, there is no way anybody in government can change. So it's the problem of civil society, not the problem of somebody in government. But we still want to blame government. But if we are there ourselves, we probably do worse than those who are there. There is someone who said, go to the person who is selling pepper or grinding tomatoes or putting oranges together on the high street. We will tell the problem of the world, but tell him about what is producing. He can't produce the best orange for you to give to you. So the basis is we need to, as elders, as adults, we need to think about rather than just academic exercise.
Yes.
How can we honestly start to lay that foundation?
Great value, yes.
And that's why what you are doing is highly important, highly valuable.
Thank you.
Because that's where we need to go back to.
Yes.
The world can't change in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But we can start to put the necessary, create the enabling environment to start creating that change. And it's only through the mindset to the value of children. Let's give an example. A woman who is taking care, who has children, they call her, who is probably taking care of her children, they call her housewife. Now, we forget one thing, that child she's taking care of will be the president of the country tomorrow. So she's doing a great service to society. But we minimize her and call her housewife, forgetting that she's doing a service. So every woman that wants to go and work, they call her job. And then we abandon the children who will take care of tomorrow. Just like I said that we fail to remember that the child is the father of man. And I always say one thing. No child was born to be a vagabond. Neither a child born to be a miscreant.
Very well said.
It is our prostitute. It's society that make them what they are, and society suffers for it today because we vote billions to rebuild prisons. And the money we will have used to be able to build a better society, to inject morality, spirituality, values into our young people so that they can change society for a better tomorrow.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. I think you have said everything what I wanted to say. I mean, it's really beautiful that you have put things together. I hope that this conversation helps people understand the perspective of the views that you have shared, connecting the importance of the lives of the people in the third world, specifically the countries like Sudan that you said, and how grown-up organizations, by shifting their values to inclusive growth instead of just looking at profitability alone, they can contribute, which is one of the aspects I have touched in my book as well. It has been a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Abdul, and I hope that
And if I may come in and
please,
share this with
please,
you.
please.
I said earlier that if you don't know your person, how can you know any other person?
Exactly.
You're here for a purpose. Everybody is here for a purpose. And that purpose is to be kind, to show kindness to others, because
Yes.
you also want people to be kind to you. Now, if at a particular age, you see, a lot of people, because today, like for instance, I give you in England here, churches are becoming ghost towns, because you remember that it was from here Christianity was taken to from Africa and some countries, even in India and the rest. But the churches themselves are ghost town because nobody goes there anymore. So the basis there is that society itself, the way it changes, if you cannot find in yourself at a particular age of why you are here, you need to ask yourself, why are you here? And what have you done? Because certain things you will do is not by your making. Exactly. What happens the next 1 minute, nobody can say. Nobody can. It happens, it happens. So all we pray is that let's have challenges, but let us be able to overcome those challenges. And challenges are the best time that the best comes out of human being. A lot of people were not strong enough to have a strong mind, not to do things that are illegal, to do things that are unworthy. But they seem to have a pressure, either through pressure groups, through friends, whatever. They led up into doing that. But if some of us find that we were even through all that, we don't allow ourselves, there must be something. It's not that you are too powerful. And I'm trying to say this in the sense that there's things that I see and I can't understand myself. But when I don't understand myself, then I say, thank God that I could. I give you examples. When I was serving then 2014, 2016 on the board of the ASEAN University of Asia Pacific in Thailand. I called the vice chancellor of Jam Lakes University in Bhopal, who is now in Australia. And I know Swaro, Professor I know Swaro. And I said, look, in the film industry, because I believe that if you have a film festival, you can bring a lot of people together and start to change their mindset. So I said, come about, I said, let's put film, music, and arts together. Nobody in the world has ever done it. So and I created it called Film Affairs. But before then, the starting point, I called Professor Anusara. I said, you can see the process. There's a process. In anything you do, there must be history. There must be history. There must be a storyline. And I said, look, in the world today, there are three in the film industry. You have Hollywood, Bollywood, number one.
Yeah.
I said number two is not even Hollywood. But 99% will tell in the world that it's Hollywood. But Hollywood. No, it's Nollywood from Nigeria.
Okay.
And the third one is Hollywood. And then you now have from China. But however, the quality of the films in Africa is not as good. It's just the marketers they do. So I asked her, Anu, can we work together to try and ensure that Bollywood can help? You see, the angle was to help. I'm not in that industry, but I saw something there to help that industry so that that industry can have good quality. So Africa and Asia can come together based on what happened in Bandung 1955. That was just my idea. It grew up to be a film fest, and the Indian Society for Technical Education invited me as special guest to Chennai, VIT University, where they planted my first tree in India. I give glory to God Almighty. And we signed an MOU to do the Film Affair, which is the first World Film Music Arts Award Festival. Then what happened? We said in Bhopal, you probably remember because when you talk about Bhopal outside here, we talk about the city of sadness. And why? Because of that chemical disaster that happened in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. So we said, if we can have the festival there, maybe we start turning to city of happiness. And that got me crazy. Sir, to make sure this works, I serve with the government, do whatever I can do. I spent 4 months in Bhopal.
Oh,
I left my London to spend 4 months in a city, I don't know, just to ensure that we can have this event. So that's part of what I asked. And then we realized that Bhopal could not contain the large number of guests we expect to such a
yes.
conference.
Yes.
There's not enough flights, there's not enough hotels. Then I heard about Ramoji Film City. And it takes 1.5 hours flight to Ramoji Film in Hyderabad. Sir, Abdul, Dewale, Mohammed took 39 hours by train.
Oh,
Now you say, whoa, but sir, turn your negative to your positive. I use that opportunity to know more about India.
very good.
I boast to most Indian friends of mine that I know India more than them because I've never traveled that distance. And when I go to Ramoji Film City, I told the directors, I said, I'm going to do a film called, I told them, I said, because of that journey, I told them I'm going to do a film called The African Boy in India. Because of my experience. So this is about life. So if I ask myself and sit back, I want to spend 4 months living my own income I'm earning here, living my family, which is more important. I remember my third son, my third grandchild son, his birthday had to happen when I was in Bhopal, and they had to plant a tree for me 27th of April 2017, and I was still in Bhopal at that time, and then they planted my second tree. My third tree was in Chandigarh, in Punjab. Now, if I then ask, why do I merit this tree? How can I, as a human being, leave my job, leave my family, and spend 4 months, or go by train? But you turn your negative to your positive. So when this happened to us, then you have to realize that there is something that tells you you have to pray not to change, because human beings, when they see fortune come, sometimes they change because people allow pressure on themselves, they change. So you have to be very strong at it. Keep to your faith, believing. You came with nothing, you go with nothing. Give the best education to your children and leave the rest. And leave a name, because that's the most important.
Yes.
Not how much you give to children, is the name that you give them. So we should try to check inside us. That's why we come to even yoga. I have a colleague in India. We've come up with a plan. We want to ensure in every school, even in the private businesses, in companies, in government, when people leave their homes and come to work, they went through a lot of things, a lot of distractions. When they get to the business, either to government, to their offices, let them go and do 30 minutes at least of yoga. Even if it's 30 minutes, get themselves back together and then go straight into giving the service. The best will come out of them.
Correct.
So this is a part of what we're planning to introduce within our universities, colleges, and even institutions across government and the private sector. Spiritual CEO
Thank you, sir.
is just a beginning, I believe, that will not extend to all the, what will I call it? Because I believe it's the enabling factor to help us be able to lay the foundation for change in our troubled society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you.